It is a game called The New Gate. It is a new generation VR MMORPG because it utilizes advanced technology. It allows people to freely explore the open world in a very free and unrestrained way, and there are 7 races for you to choose from, while being able to create avatars to participate in the game. From there, you can freely choose a profession, because players could not log out. Or you can engage in trading to become wealthy, even become a blacksmith to create legendary weapons. In the end, it can realize all your imaginations, and it has been officially released worldwide. But one day, the new gate became a death game because players could not log out, and if they died in the game, they would also die in the real world. Suddenly, a young man saved a girl. It turns out that was Shin. He is a hero, to be able to end this death game, therefore, he will continue to fight. At this moment in a small house, Shin is bidding farewell to his friends to head towards the dungeon. And the enemy in this dungeon is the Gatekeeper Origin, being the final boss. This monster is very powerful, thus, it continuously attacks Shin, but all its attacks were dodged by him. Immediately, Shin counterattacks and cuts off its wings, but its health is restored immediately, including its wings. So, Shin continues to charge and fight, and uses the skill Steel Slash to deal damage to it. Even so, the monster's health still recovers. Immediately, Shin uses the skill Moonlight Slash Dance. Finally, he is able to defeat the monster, and the system announces the dungeon has been successfully cleared. He then receives various titles, such as Time Traveler, Completer, and Liberator. At the same time, he can log out. Immediately, he checks his friends list, thinking that everyone had logged out of the game. Just as Shin was about to press the log out button, a gate opened, and transported him to a grassland. So, Shin summoned the system to check. Surprisingly, all his stats had increased. This was thanks to the battle with the final boss, which helped him earn the titles. Thinking he could log out of the game now, suddenly, the log out button on the system disappeared, and Shin checked the friends list. Surprisingly, he could not connect to the network. This caused him great confusion, knowing that he was trapped in this world, so, he used a piece of paper to transform it into a bird, which helped Shin to return home. On the way back, Shin was very surprised. Everything seemed slightly different, so, he returned to the house. Surprisingly, Shin saw a girl being taken away by a group of thugs, but just as they crossed the barrier, they were attacked by a wild boar. As it charged at the girl, Shin appeared just in time to immediately defeat it. Shin also said, "I'm back." At this moment, the girl thanked him for saving her. It turned out her name was Tiara, thinking he was an acquaintance of her master, because Shin said, "I'm back." But, this also surprised him when he learned that Shni was Tiara's master. It turned out she was from the High Elf race, who had appeared when Shin was saying goodbye. When he asked where Shni was, Tiara refused to tell him because she didn't trust someone she just met. But, Tiara could help Shin pass a message, each time costing 1000 jewel. So, Shin used the item box to give her a jade gold coin. She was very surprised that he could use the item box, because only elders or kings could use it. Additionally, 1 jade coin was equivalent to 10 billion jewel. This astonished Shin. So, Tiara asked who Shin was, and he said he was an adventurer, his race being high human. This greatly surprised Tiara, because in history, there were only 6 high humans, and 500 years ago, after the glorious dusk, all of them disappeared. Everything started to connect. It turned out that after Shin defeated the final boss, there was an event that trapped tens of thousands of people in the game. And this is the world 500 years later. Finally, Shin gave Tiara a jade gold coin to thank her for telling him. This made Tiara uncomfortable because she didn't think anyone foolish enough would give away a jade gold coin. Then Shin pointed out that the fool was him. This made her very happy. She had never held a gold coin before, very surprised that Shin could see her as an elf, because Shni used magic to change Tiara's appearance. Black-haired elves symbolize misfortune. Thanks to this, she had lived peacefully for 100 years. However, Tiara's hair wasn't originally black. She had unexpectedly fallen under a curse. He made Tiara's hair color change. Immediately, Shin realized, and used his power to cleanse the curse. This made Tiara very happy. For the first time in 100 years, she could see her hair color again. Finally, Shin helped Tiara escape the barrier, to avoid monster attacks due to the curse, so she could see the world once more. This made Tiara very happy. At this moment, she gave Shin an introductory letter. It would help him easily enter the city. So, Shin bid farewell to her to explore the world. Thanks to the introductory letter, thus, he reached the Adventurers Guild. Shin registered to become an adventurer. Now, he was undecided on what to do next. Coincidentally, Celica was the one who registered Shin, and also served here. She advised him to check the guild's private room, because Shin had the introductory letter from Moon Shrine. Surprisingly, the guild master was also present here, and he introduced himself as Heim, the owner of this guild. Immediately, he got straight to the point of checking the letter. Shin agreed. After confirming the authenticity of the letter, Heim said, "This letter can grant you passage to most countries. It may even grant you an audience with the king, because of its significant privilege." Then he also advised Shin if he lacked the ability, he should discard the letter, because it could harm him, but with his own strength. He also declined. After a hard day, Shin returned to his lodging. The next day, he changed clothes to return to the guild. Celica also gave Shin the guild card. She said, "Adventurers have 9 ranks from SS to G. Each completed mission earns points towards ranking up." So, Shin agreed to take on missions. At this point, he wanted to take on a mission to gather hilt grass. Shin was approved for this mission. It seemed like an easy task to earn money, but, after 3 hours, he still couldn't find any. Surprisingly, when checking the radar on the system, he accidentally discovered a moving monster. It turned out to be Skull. Immediately, Shin rushed to attack. Unexpectedly, this monster was undead. Yet it wielded a sword imbued with light attributes. So Shin gathered his energy and launched a finishing blow. And he defeated it. The sword of light flew away. At the same time, a gemstone dropped after defeating the undead. After completing the mission, on the way back to the guild, Shin suddenly encountered a group of people gathering. It turned out to be adventurers who had returned from battle. The monster that caused injuries to their group was Skull. Out of the 12 who entered the forest, only 4 remained. Surprisingly, during the attack on Skull, Shin unintentionally made the great sword fly to the castle tower. Luckily, it didn't harm anyone injured. So Shin returned to the guild to report the mission. He promptly handed over the gem obtained from defeating Skull. This surprised Celica greatly, because defeating that monster alone was very difficult. At this moment, a girl with green hair suddenly appeared. It turned out she was Celica's colleague named Else. Celica immediately announced that Shin was the one who defeated Skull. Else asked Celica to check the gem. She then explained that undead creatures are born where grudges linger, and these places are also abundant with dark magic. However, the dark magic level of this undead was 359, which astonished both of them. Immediately, Celica took the orb to check, because it could determine Shin's strength. Now, Shin sat in the tavern waiting for the results of the inspection. Suddenly, a man in armor resembling a sea god appeared. He introduced himself as Wilhelm, a vampire. His current level displayed on the system was 188. Abruptly, he asked Shin if he had just become an adventurer. Surprisingly, Shin asked why his face looked pale, making everyone in the guild think he was foolish to dare question him like that. Wilhelm replied that it was due to the sword beside him, which was the Venom sword. It would drain the life force of others, and share it with its owner. Finally, both of them enjoyed their meal together, as if nothing had happened. The next day, Shin went straight to the library, to learn more about this world. But he didn't find anything particularly important. Meanwhile, at the guild, everyone was having a meeting about Skull being defeated. After checking and confirming the undead's power was 359, they weren't surprised, because Shin was the one with the letter. Knowing that this monster was of king rank, yet not collecting the sword and armor after defeating it, left the knight astonished. Perhaps the sword had destroyed the castle. The defeat of Skull seemed connected to this, because this sword of light equated to a legendary national treasure. Therefore, he was very curious about the person who defeated the monster wielding this sword. However, the guildmaster did not permit this investigation, as per Shin's request to keep it secret. Feeling bored at the moment, since he couldn't gather any information, suddenly, a young beast girl appeared. She kept looking in his direction, so Shin offered her some skewers of meat, making her very happy. At this moment, she introduced herself as Millie. Surprisingly, Wilhelm appeared. It turns out she was acquainted with Wilhelm, and he also mentioned that Millie is a child from an orphanage. Due to her mischief, she sneaked out. Surprisingly, Millie whispered into Shin's ear upon returning, and thus the two of them returned. Back at the inn, Shin kept thinking about earlier. Turns out Millie asked him to rescue a young fox in the northern forest. So Shin decided to go back and find Tiara. The next morning, he returned to the moon shrine. At this point, Shin took out a sword, and entrusted it to Tiara to give to Schnee, with the message, "If you recognize this, come see me." knowing it's an ancient weapon, so she hesitated to accept it. Shin immediately explained that, this is Shni's weapon, and only the two of them can wield it, or someone they permit to use it. Tiara then recognized the immense power within the sword. She said she didn't want to use it, because this sword could consume her. So Tiara reluctantly accepted it. And Shin also took out 2 cards to give to Schnee, since these cards can communicate with him. When Schnee returns, wherever he may be, after briefing Tiara on everything, he immediately moved to the northern forest, to fulfill Millie's request, and discovered a boundary in this place, continuously warned and urged by the boundary to disappear. But he continued to move forward, and discovered a shrine gate. Upon entering, found a baby fox, afflicted by poison and cursed. Immediately, he used his power to heal. While the system reported a group of monsters approaching, he quickly took the baby fox away from there, successively defeating all the undead. Surprisingly, 2 statues in front of the shrine transformed into 2 monsters. He learned their names. Golem Invader with level 674. Immediately they used elemental attacks against Shin, swiftly dodging their assaults, and countered with Shadow Blind, to bind them in place. Upon detecting the central nexus of the boundary, Shin unleashed Fire Penetration, instantly defeating the monsters, simultaneously breaking the boundary, and saving the baby fox. At this moment, Shin proceeded to inspect. Surprisingly, she was an element tail, the highest ranked creature in New Gate, often taking the form of large beings or humans, and this was its smaller form. So both of them returned. At Shni's place, they received the card, and were very surprised that the owner had returned. Now on his way back, Shin asked the baby fox if it wanted to form a pact with him. The baby fox immediately agreed, and both completed the pact with each other, thinking that he hadn't named her yet. So Shin named the baby fox Yuzaha, which made her very happy. Upon returning to the guild, Shin reported his mission. After completing the report, Shin also received a new task, and proceeded to the church to meet Millie. The next morning at the church, a sister came to ask him, "Will you accept this mission?" So he said, "I will investigate." Initially, it was to find a girl named Millie, so she led Shin to meet Millie. Knowing that he was a good person, she introduced herself as Tolia, a sister of this church, and she needed someone who could inherit skills, to teach her purification skills. That was Shin's mission, because currently, those who can inherit skills are very rare. But before carrying out this mission, in exchange, he had to understand Millie's strength, because he hadn't met Yuzaha yet, and Millie still knew she would encounter danger. Then Millie also said, "With him, everything will be fine." So Tolia agreed to this condition. Now Tolia said that Millie holds the title of astrologer, and she has never been wrong in her predictions, because the power of this title allows her to foresee events. Millie can see scenes that are different from normal people, and she also said that Wilhelm is an adventurer who originated here. So Shin decided to teach purification magic to Tolia, but she refused, because there is also the pastor's granddaughter here, which made Shin very uncomfortable. Now the children are playing happily with Yuzaha, and the bond between Millie and Yuzaha has grown closer. Suddenly, a girl from the church appeared, and she just asked if Shin could save this church. But it's not just about the disappearance of the orphanage girl, because a new priest will come to replace Tolia. It is said that this person can use special skills, and this priest will destroy the orphanage. The pastor's daughter will inherit the church. So after playing and getting closer as a group, and resting under a tree, Tolia also came out. Seeing this, Shin smiled at her, and this made Tolia very happy. So Rashia is a novice in the church. She's also the pastor's granddaughter, a girl who seems clumsy, and she's here to learn purification magic. So Shin asked about a place with many undead. Tolia said there's only the plane of wandering spirits, where his request could be met. Knowing that Shin is the one taking on the task, after completing the mission, immediately Wilhelm returned to the church. He was surprised that Shin knew everything, but due to Millie's trust, he agreed as well. So Wilhelm used his venomous dagger, hoping Shin wouldn't tell anyone about Millie's power. Wilhelm also asked about the conditions to inherit purification magic, and Shin explained that to learn this art, one must prepare an item called the Holy Gem of Prayer. Also, they must defeat 200 undead creatures and reach at least level 150. Shin will assist Rashia, he will weaken it, and Rashia just needs to finish it. Then everyone will accept the task. Wilhelm will also go with them. While returning, he also waited for Shin, and he also asked if Shin is the chosen one. But it seems Shin doesn't understand, so Wilhelm explained that the chosen ones are those who are born with skills, titles, and even knowledge, Shin suddenly realizes there might be others like him. As they chat happily together, suddenly, Shin receives a message from Tiara that Schnee will return. She's also surprised he knows about her mentor, when he doesn't know who Shin is talking to. Seeing he has a letter of introduction from the Moon Temple, this surprises Wilhelm greatly, but he also had a letter of introduction like that. The next morning, they gathered to start the mission. Shin then gave Rishia the Holy Gem of Prayer. The group began their battle immediately. Undead wolves rushed in to attack. Shin used the Purifying Leaf, and Rishia executed the finishing blow. The undead horde continued to attack them, but the group retaliated, moving towards the center, outside. A group of knights was battling the undead, but their attacks were ineffective. Unexpectedly, Schnee arrived to rescue them. She quickly healed the group of knights, who then discussed the unusual appearance of the undead. However, Schnee was not concerned about that. Her thoughts were solely on her owner, hoping to meet Shin as soon as possible. The knights expressed their gratitude to Schnee for her help, and then they parted ways, Schnee swiftly returning. At the battlefield of Bin Nguyen Vong Lin, the battle rages on. Wilhelm is now fighting against Skull. Spotting an opening in the enemy's defense, he delivers a finishing blow. Thus, the undead Skull is defeated. Rishia performs the finishing move. And now she meets the requirements to learn a new skill and potentially study purification skills to return to her apprenticeship. Suddenly, there is a disturbance, a chaotic undead curse, causing all creatures to be absorbed by the cursed spirit. This gives rise to the Skull Lord. Its current level is 804, which shocks everyone, thinking that the barrier will keep them safe. It immediately leaps up and breaks the barrier. Now, Shin's group is surrounded by the undead. Just as Wilhelm is about to call for a retreat, Shin unexpectedly says he will stay. He then uses Limit Off. Since the barrier is now destroyed, Shin knows he cannot run away. Shin advises Wilhelm to return. Shin will stay here to stop it. He then enhances Wilhelm's speed. Immediately, Shin uses the skill Lightning Bunker to create a path for Wilhelm. He and Yuzaha will stay behind to fight. Shin then uses the move Thunder Iron to attack the undead. Meanwhile, on her way back, Schnee senses a familiar magical energy, so she changes direction to head there, activating the system map to check. Shin realizes he's surrounded by tens of thousands of undead. This makes Shin worried. Noticing a green dot approaching, he immediately goes to investigate. Schnee reunites with Shin. He asks, "Are you well?" In the middle of a romantic moment, the undead come to interrupt. Seeing this, Yuzaha uses her power. Yuzaha creates a barrier to help Shin. Schnee immediately runs over and hugs Shin. She asks, "Do you have anything to say?" Shin replies, "I'm back." It's just a simple statement, but it makes Schnee very happy. At this moment, Yuzaha's power reaches its limit, and the Skull Lord arrives. The two of them then combine their powers to purify all the undead, and causes the Skull Lord to freeze in place. Shin immediately leaps up to counterattack. Finally, he defeats it. Now, Shin tells Schnee about his journey, and the reason for his delayed appearance. Schnee also learns that Shin overcame the dungeon, but they didn't know where to find him, so everyone split up to search for him. Now, Shin asks Schnee not to call him Master anymore because she has become famous, so he feels very embarrassed, so Schnee calls him by his name. Shin then asks if she remembers anything about their past, but everything in every memory has passed. But she remembers everything they've been through. They reminisce about their memories together. Now, the sky starts to lighten. Suddenly, when Schnee saw Yuzaha, she realized that Yuzaha is not an ordinary spirit. So when Shin picks up Yuzaha, suddenly, her tail turned into 3 tails. Yuzaha greeted Shin in the morning. This made him very surprised, because she could speak, so he forbade her from talking, for fear that people would know Yuzaha is not an ordinary fox. After finishing the conversation, Shin went to meet with Wilhelm. Wilhelm was very surprised when Shin appeared there. Now, the royal knights are inspecting the area, seeing something unusual due to signs of magic power. Suddenly, the knight discovered a sword. Knowing this sword can only be forged by one person, only the blacksmith of the high human race, who is also the owner of the Moon Temple. Meanwhile, Wilhelm was asking him to explain everything. "Why are you here? And why is Schnee with you?" So Shin gave the reason that Schnee handled them, but Wilhelm didn't believe him. Knowing that the one who defeated Skull Lord was Shin, and through his clear explanation of everything, Shin told Wilhelm everything, including that he is a high human, or Schnee's owner. This did not convince Wilhelm. because upon seeing Shin possess such immense magical power, it proved that he was very strong. So Shin proposed improving Wilhelm's demon sword, but he was refused. At this moment, Rashia had also woken up, surprised that Shin could appear here. But even more surprising was Schnee's presence, which truly made Schnee very happy. Now they are all on their way back, so Shin gave Wilhelm a card, with a request that if there is anything, he should call him, because he didn't want Shin to get involved in trouble. So Wilhelm deliberately declined, but Shin denied everything, and said, "Just pull me in," because he didn't want to leave his friends behind. So Wilhelm agreed to accept it, and happily took Rashia back. Knowing that Shin was still the same as before, that truly made Schnee very happy, because she always wanted to be by Shin's side. Now both of them have returned to the Moon Temple. Shin noticed there was a very pleasant smell in the temple, surprised to see him walking alongside his master, so she immediately asked why, and then Schnee explained that Shin is the owner of the Moon Temple. This startled Tiara greatly, because the owner of the Moon Temple is a high human, a legend who lived 500 years ago. Shin had mentioned before that he is a high human, but Tiara couldn't have imagined that it would be true, which made her unable to believe it. But now with Schnee here, she said it couldn't possibly be wrong, suspecting that Shin, as her boss, would fire her. So Tiara kept apologizing to him, but Shin was very cheerful, because everything today was very enjoyable, and also introduced his colleagues to Tiara. Now, a splendid feast had begun, and the cook was Schnee with all delicious dishes. That made Tiara very surprised, especially because the ingredients for those dishes were extremely terrifying plants and monsters. But those were the ingredients difficult to find for ordinary people like Tiara, making her truly very surprised. At this moment, Shin asked, "What does aura mean?" So she explained that it's the remnants of magical power along with life force, often seen on rare monsters and plants, and then everyone happily enjoyed. After the feast, Shin asked Schnee about everyone, but now she also didn't know where they were, because each person had split up to search for him. When he heard that, Shin felt really sad. But now, Tiara was drunk after the party, and joked around a lot, which lightened Shin's mood, so he returned to his room. While sleeping, Shin suddenly felt something very soft, which woke him up. As he opened his eyes, he saw Schnee right beside him, which startled Shin greatly, but when he saw her crying, he immediately wiped Schnee's tears away, and then both slept next to each other until morning. The next morning, upon waking up and opening his eyes, he felt something rough under his feet. When he pulled back the covers, he saw it was Yuzuha, who had transformed into a human. This surprised him greatly, but she was stark naked. So Shin promptly gave Yuzuha a set of women's clothing. Upon learning that Yuzuha could transform into a human, he noticed she was wearing a very cute outfit, which made everyone happy. After everyone enjoyed their breakfast together, Shin asked why Yuzuha was inside the shrine. At this point, she explained that it was comfortable inside there. He also asked about the circles underneath her, but Yuzuha didn't know what they were either. Shin also asked her why she was in that state, so she also said that while she was sunbathing, unexpectedly encountering water, wind, and thunder drained Yuzuha's energy. But when she thought she couldn't make it through, Shin appeared to rescue her. The whole group was very happy, and enjoyed eating baked goods together. At this point, Schnee mentioned that Shin needed to meet someone. That someone was Gerard. This surprised Shin a lot, because up until now, he's still alive, since he belongs to the High Beast tribe, who typically can live for about 150 years. It's unclear why he's managed to live this long, but now, his lifespan is nearing its end. So Shin needs to meet Gerard as soon as possible. By now, he has unified all beast races to establish the Farned Beast Alliance, and he has become the Beast King. So everyone discussed the matter. Finally, the decision was made to go meet Gerard. Now the group has decided to split into two teams. The first team will be Schnee. She will report on the Skull Lord's situation to the kingdom. The remaining team will consist of Shin, Yuzuha, and Tiara, and everyone will prepare everything before setting off. So Shin returned to the forge to forge several swords and get ready for battle. The next morning, Shin was very surprised by Tiara's chest, making him feel embarrassed. But he still often stole glances at her secretly, and so the group set off. Thus, Shin along with Tiara moved towards the town. At this moment, she was very surprised because it had been a long time since she could go outside. So Shin said that after completing the task he would take her to visit everything. Now Shin has arrived at the guild, and he has been promoted to rank E. Surprisingly, without doing anything, he was promoted, but from the investigations and reports, it was decided to promote Shin, and Shin asked about registering Tiara as a guild member. Surprisingly, he saw a girl standing next to him, which made Celica jealous, thinking that Shin had someone new and had forgotten about her. So Shin asked Celica about the Holy Land, but it had been destroyed at the break of dawn, and this information can only be disclosed to rank B and above, and Shin also said that he would prepare to go to Farned. Then she said there was a mission to escort to the Birun transfer point, which will depart at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There are already 2 registered adventurers, so Shin and Tiara will go with them to the guild. Now they have plenty of time. So Shin took Tiara to visit many places, making her very happy. At this moment, they also moved to the church, and saw Rashia sweeping the yard, so they approached to greet her, knowing she was Shnee's disciple, which made Rashia very excited. Then Shin went inside to greet everyone, knowing that thanks to him the orphanage wasn't destroyed, so Millie thanked Shin. Knowing that this matter couldn't end like this, so Shin gave the church a ring as well as gave Millie a necklace to protect everyone. Finally, they thanked Shin and Tiara for everything that had just happened. Now they have returned to the guild to receive Tiara's guild card. So Shin proposed returning to the Moon Shrine, because he has a magic crystal that can help return there anytime, since it has been infused with teleportation magic. This surprised Tiara greatly, because teleportation magic is considered lost. But what surprised her the most was that Shin had created it. As soon as Shin used the magic crystal, it helped them return. Upon their return, Tiara was still astonished. At this point, Shin used storage to transform the Moon Shrine into a necklace. Now they will move to the mission reception area, and Shin met 2 companions, so they introduced themselves as Gayan and Tsubaki. The task's owner has also arrived, Mr. Nak. So everyone has mounted their horses and moved towards Farned, near the castle. Everyone is discussing the recent events, including the disappearance of the Moon Shrine. Knowing Schnee is preparing to come here, so everyone has agreed to wait for her answer. On Shin's side, everyone is getting to know each other, finding out that Gayan is a current E-rank samurai, and Tsubaki is a current E-rank warrior. Now everyone has become friendly with each other, thinking that Shin comes from Hinomoto, because most samurai originate from there. So Shin has also learned many new things, because most guilds created when he played the game have become powerful nations. Unexpectedly, the horse-drawn carriage was stopped because a group of bandits appeared, and thus began the telling of legends. If you don't want to die, leave your belongings behind. Men will be killed, but women will be taken care of. So Shin called on Yuzuha to protect Mr. Nak. While the adventurers rushed into battle, seeing Tsubaki appearing vulnerable, she softened the leader's heart, so he ordered his men to leave her behind for his care. This made Shin truly furious, and he displayed his killing intent, which surprised Tiara greatly, but she was also very afraid because she didn't want to harm people. So Tiara gathered her courage to support them with her bow. When she saw someone ambushing them, this made the bandits worried. Suddenly, one of them rushed forward to attack. Seeing this, Tsubaki directly charged to attack. She used her skill, Swift Change, to swiftly approach and attack him. Then they sequentially attacked each bandit. Immediately, Shin charged in front of the leader and swiftly defeated him. He directly questioned him. Seeing Shin engulfed in rage, Tiara immediately hugged him on the hillside. This immediately snapped Shin back to reality. Indeed, a woman's embrace can calm anyone down. Now they resumed their journey, thus, they completed the mission. Now the adventurers have parted ways, and the road to Farned is still far. So Shin suggested they hire horses. Now they have arrived at the rental place. Seeing that the horses seemed somewhat lacking, he thought about improving them, but Tiara guessed his intentions. Then an employee arrived to assist them, introducing the best horses available. Surprisingly, Shin asked if monsters could pull the carriages, so the employee also mentioned that such cases exist, but they are rare occurrences. Now Shin intends to have Yuzuha transformed to pull the carriage. Suddenly, Schnee approached Shin and spoke with him. She mentioned that everything in the capital was settled. Knowing Shin was looking for monsters to pull the carriage, Schnee told him to wait for her to prepare, and asked Shin to wait for her arrival. As for the disappearance of the Moon Shrine, she explained that it had been stored elsewhere. This made everyone there very fearful because the Moon Shrine was highly concerning to them. Schnee herself was extremely fearsome. She was capable of easily wiping out a nation, because someone dared to suggest the Moon Shrine belonged to them. They must have thought that just possessing the Moon Shrine would gain them Schnee's favor. Knowing many had hinted at it to her, so Schnee asked, "Are you jealous?" When she asked that, Shin was left dumbfounded, and she said, "You should think about it yourself." Now they have arrived at a hotel to rent accommodations, so the receptionist asked if they wanted one room. Both of them felt embarrassed, and replied, each person will have their own room. However, the rooms here seem very expensive, because renting for just one day costs nearly half of the mission's payment. Back in the room, Yuzuha immediately transformed and lay down on the bed. After using up the evening, the whole group began to rest. On Shini's side, she is searching for a monster to pull Shin's carriage. The next day, they continued searching for the right type of horse-drawn carriage, and Shin has also chosen a model he likes. At the same time, he began making improvements to it. Surprisingly, he finished in less than a minute, which greatly surprised Tiara. At this point, Schnee also arrived, so the two of them moved to converge with her. When they arrived, both were very surprised, because a monster would be pulling their carriage. The level of Grufazio is 751. Typically, the maximum level for monsters is 650. But this one has horns on its head, making it an extremely special individual. This surprised Shin greatly, and this monster will be pulling their carriage. So he asked where she found this creature. She replied that she just found it in the nearby mountains. Immediately, it also became friendly with Tiara, thinking that it seems too big to pull a carriage, so Schnee called for Grufazio to shrink down. Surprisingly, Shin said he had never seen a divine beast used for pulling a carriage before. Hearing this, Schnee also felt saddened. Seeing this, Shin quickly agreed, and she also said to Shin, let me handle it. He also asked Schnee what its name was, so she said its name was Kagero. Therefore, the group decided to set off, and they would go meet an old acquaintance. That person was Gerard. With the speed of the divine beast, everyone traveled extremely fast, but thanks to Shin's improvements to the carriage, it didn't cause any discomfort during the journey. Now Kagero also mentioned sensing a familiar scent, and that person was Tiara. At this moment, she also remembered that long ago, she had rescued a puppy, but that was over 100 years ago. It turns out that puppy was Tiara, so Schnee suggested that she would transfer ownership to Tiara, thinking that with her current level, she wouldn't be able to bear it, but Schnee also said that if both agreed, then there would be no issue, so they stopped. At this point, Schnee began canceling the contract with Kagero to transfer the contract to Tiara. After completing the contract, Tiara's mana also began to run low, so they decided to rest here. Shin thanked Schnee for everything. The next morning, the whole group started moving. They had been informed by Schnee beforehand, so someone came to lead them. Knowing that the person they were looking for had arrived, they led everyone to the mansion. Finally, after 500 years, he met Shin, and both of them laughed joyfully together, because neither of them thought anyone would still be alive by now. At this moment, Gerard also introduced to Shin Wolfgang is the current Beast King, along with his daughter Quor, and his two companions are Van, along with Rajim. Shin greeted everyone warmly. Gerard then explained the formidable nature of the High Human, all of whom were legendary figures worthy of respect. And then the two reminisced about many things. They had always fought side by side in the past, and Shin had always trusted Gerard to cover their rear. So they both shared their stories with each other, each feeling a sense of happiness. Suddenly, Gerard became serious to talk about the main topic. His impending death was approaching, as he knew he only had about a month left to live. But Shin had already anticipated this. Since Schnee mentioned Gerard, Shin was already quite surprised. So Gerard also said that perhaps the gods had answered his wish to meet Shin once again. Surprisingly, Gerard proposed a duel to him because he wanted to die as a warrior. Seeing this, Shin immediately accepted the challenge. So he asked Gerard if he had told anyone yet, but he didn't want anyone to know about the duel. Perhaps Van and Rajim already knew everything, because since Shin disappeared, they have been Gerard's companions. They are also long-lived races. Moreover, Wolfgang is a good leader, because he always listens to everyone, and he could potentially take Gerard's place. That's why Gerard isn't concerned about anything right now. He just needs to fulfill his own wish. Gerard has now gathered everyone to inform them about the duel, which will take place in a week. The venue will be the Ralua Valley. But this made Quor uncomfortable, and she said, why can everyone stay so calm? Gerard responded, I have lived long enough. This is also his greatest wish. So Gerard wants everyone to accept it. Now both of them respect each other greatly, knowing that this could be a very important battle for him, from memories of past battles together. And Shin will assist Gerard in fulfilling it. The next morning, after enjoying breakfast, Gerard asked Shin to mend his old gloves. Immediately, Shin summoned the moon altar to mend them quickly and flawlessly, making them look brand new, which amazed everyone. This translation aims to convey the and he handed them back to Gerard. At this point, he asked Shin, if you find a way to return, will you go back to your own world? Because he's worried about Schnee, knowing her feelings for Shin, so, he asked Shin that question, but, Shin also knew this, because that's his wish, and that's also why Shin continues to fight. Now they both understand each other much better. The next day, everyone enjoyed their lives, and thanks to Kagero, they were transported to the battlefield. Upon arrival, Shin asked Schnee to erect a barrier to protect everyone. Thus, Gerard bid farewell to everyone, and the duel between the two began to unfold. Currently, everyone could only stand at a distance and watch, because the pressure of their powers was immense. Gerard continuously lunged forward to attack Shin, and Shin countered his moves. However, Shin did not use his full strength title to defeat the final boss, therefore, it would be cheating, making the fight boring. Knowing this, Gerard still wants Shin to use his true power, so he immediately transforms, taking on the form of a werewolf. Seeing this, Shin unleashes his attacking skills against Gerard, but with the speed of his transformation, Gerard easily dodges and counters. Then, Gerard unleashes his ultimate technique to attack Shin. While Shin was trying to block the attack, suddenly, Gerard appeared behind him and unleashed a series of skills that forced Shin to just defend. Immediately after, Shin flew up, delivered the decisive strike. Sky Slayer, Gerard countered with his ultimate technique, Snow Elegance. Thus, both their weapons were destroyed. Without hesitation, Gerard then delivered a decisive blow, but it was just a light punch, because his power had reached its limit. Gerard then made a request of Shin. He wanted to see Shin's true strength. Shin was also ready, and used all his power. This amazed everyone. Finally, Gerard fulfilled his wish and departed. After the battle concluded, Shin handed Gerard's body over to Wolfgang. With a smile on his face, Gerard fulfilled his wish by achieving his desire, and Shin himself acknowledged his strength, having been able to fight on par with the high human race. Everyone conducted a ceremony to bid farewell to Gerard. Recognizing Shin's sadness, Schnee embraced him and comforted Shin not to be sad anymore, which greatly eased Shin's sorrow. The next morning, the three of them prepared to stroll through the streets. Schnee and Tiara then disguised themselves as Beastman. Not wanting to attract too much attention, Schnee led everyone to the resting place of the leaders, where Schweid, who is also a subordinate of Shin, had already arrived. Schweid then stated that he was the king of the Dragon Kingdom, but had now relinquished his throne. Upon his arrival, he immediately knelt down to greet Shin. However, Shin advised him not to do so anymore, because now they were in different positions, so he agreed. Knowing that Gerard had peacefully departed, so he also felt happy inside, because as warriors, that's their pride. So Schweid asked Shin why he came here, and he also said that he would scout the Holy Land, but now Schweid also has to go back, so he will join forces with him later, and they will keep in touch via the messaging. Before departing, Shin returned the Moonlight Staff to Schweid, which was Schweid's weapon. Shin had maintained and further improved it, making him very happy, so Shin returned to the guild to receive a new mission, hoping to achieve Class C rank as soon as possible. The girl accompanying Schweid also wanted to join this mission, so they accepted the mission to exterminate goblins and collect herbs. After completing the mission, Shin returned to report back. At this moment, the staff member immediately handed him an invitation letter, because he had been summoned to the royal court. Knowing everything from defeating the undead to his connection with Schnee, the king had extended an invitation to him. Now Shin returned to meet Wolfgang, to hand over a pair of gloves to him, because before Gerard passed away, he had entrusted them to Shin, and Shin had further improved them, increasing the power of the gloves. After completing the assigned mission, Shin and everyone returned. He also moved to the Adventurers Guild, to meet with the guildmaster. At this point, Celica became jealous, because next to Shin, all his friends were girls. Immediately, he explained that he also had a male friend, and that was Wilhelm, with whom they had worked together. This revelation surprised everyone in the guild, because he was known as an independent operator, but Wilhelm's strength is at rank A. Now Shin will proceed to meet with the guildmaster, and he introduced Arad as a mage, who had appraised Shin's gems. They then mentioned Shin's invitation to the royal court, because they are investigating the case of the flying sword to the fortress, believing it is related to the sword-bearer's skull, which destroyed the princess's study. Hearing this, Shin was very surprised, and they also said that Skull possesses very high magical power, very difficult for anyone to defeat, so they doubted Shin's true strength. The Sword of Light is also extraordinary. Upon returning to their lodgings, everyone discussed, possibly wanting to invite Shin to work for them, or perhaps wanting him to marry into nobility. Seeing this, Schnee said they could call Shin her fiancé, thinking it would deter them. However, Schnee said this proactively, also adding tiara to Shin's harem. Even Yuzuha was the same. The next morning, Shin dressed up to enter the royal court. He met Gadras, to escort him to meet the princess. The princess's guard was also at level 188, possessing strength that could be the strongest in the country. At this point, Shin met the princess, and she introduced herself as Rion, so the two met each other. Surprisingly, she opened her bag. It turns out, inside was the sword that Shin recognized as Skull's sword. Rion also said that most people who can suddenly rise are chosen ones. She also worried about being targeted, but with her woman's intuition, she wasn't afraid anymore. At the same time, Shin also had the moon altar card, so Rion was more confident, thinking she would propose to Shin. But Rion just wants to have a decisive battle, so they moved to the teleportation sphere. This is a teleportation technique that has been lost, and now they can't reproduce it anymore, because it existed since the dawn of glory. Now everyone has teleported to the training grounds, so both of them have chosen their weapons, and the battle has begun. Knowing Rion's strength, Shin adjusted to match her power, so both of them attack and counterattack. Surprisingly, both of them used the same skill together. Suddenly, Rion increased her power and directly attacked Shin, forcing him to evade, but the power was too great, causing Rion's sword to not withstand it, so the battle was temporarily halted. After the battle, she invited Shin to join the army, but he declined, because Shin still wants to be an adventurer. It was surprising that Skull's sword is also here, so she said, in this country, there's a tradition, where a man gifts a sword to propose to a woman. Rion wants to possess this sword, so she wants Shin to give it to her. Shin thought she wanted to propose to him. However, Rion truly desires to own this sword, because it is equivalent to a national treasure. There are also those who exploit Shin's situation, to pressure him into serving the country, so Shin agreed to give Rion the sword. She didn't want to accept it for free and insisted on buying it, but Shin refused to take money. Instead, she offered him access to the magic library, which was what Shin truly wanted. So the group returned. Unexpectedly, Greril appeared, as he had been enchanted. Greril then used teleportation magic to take them to the Holy Land, so Shin proposed to use the communication gem to call their teammates, needing a location to meet them. Rion suggested the city of Valmer. Shin called Schnee, but she couldn't reach Shin, making her very worried. Shin then told Schnee everything, and she mentioned that mind control magic is forbidden. Not everyone can use it. They agreed to meet in Valmer, so Schnee and Tiara arrived at the royal palace. This point, she mentioned that the one behind it is a demon, a creature born from miasma. The closer they are to miasma, the stronger they become, and they also have hierarchical ranks. Closer to human form, they possess intelligence, alongside tremendous power. The mastermind behind this must be at least a count. They moved closer to the castle, and immediately Schnee used invisibility magic. They helped them advance into the castle, and they moved to the basement of the royal palace, where the demon was held captive inside. Schnee used sleep on the guards to meet Greril. Not knowing he had been controlled for some time, he struggled to remember anything, and then she attempted to dispel the effect on Greril. Suddenly, a monster attacked Schnee from behind. It turned out to be the Count demon controlling Greril, and then she also realized Schnee. Now she said that 500 years had passed before they met again, and before that, Schnee and her comrades always fought against them, so he said that the human world would end, and told Schnee to become allies with them. He also said that the high human group had abandoned them. Finally, he asked why Schnee didn't hate them for abandoning Schnee and her comrades, because he didn't know Shin had returned. Surprisingly, Schnee changed her weapon, recognizing it as Moon Tear, the weapon of the high human. Schnee immediately finished him off. After that, everyone moved to meet the king, to report that Shin and the princess were safe, but most importantly, that the demon had returned. So Schnee proposed to the king to seal the information, to avoid causing turmoil among the people. She and Tiara would go to Valmer to rendezvous with Shin, so the two of them immediately checked the way out of the sanctuary. Suddenly, Shin stopped in front of the wall, intending to use his strength to jump outside. However, as he was about to jump over the wall, unexpectedly, he returned to his original spot. Thus, Shin understood the reason behind this incident. Everything was due to the light sphere's fault, a mechanism inherent to the game, turning the entire sanctuary into a dungeon. In order to escape from here, they could only follow the path allowed by the sphere. With Shin here, Rion felt reassured, and they used the magical sphere to teleport. Immediately, Shin activated his system. Learning that an undead was present here, they moved to eliminate it. It was a type of undead using magic. It immediately used sand magic to attack them, so the two of them teamed up to quickly defeat it. Seeing Shin wielding an unfamiliar weapon, Rion asked, "What is that?" So he said it was one of his two legendary weapons, which made Rion even more fascinated with Shin, and they moved on to the next light sphere. Immediately, a monster appeared. It turned out to be a slime at level 684. So Rion rushed forward to attack, but her attack was blocked, and it began corroding Rion's clothes. So Shin unleashed a dust explosion to save her, and delivered a finishing blow. Immediately, Rion seized the opportunity to destroy the sphere and defeat it. After defeating the monster, at this point, Rion was in a state close to being naked, making Shin embarrassed. Seeing this, he gave her his own clothes, but it seemed a bit tight, so Shin asked her if she knew magic. Knowing she couldn't, so Shin taught Rion how to enchant magic onto her sword. But only weapons of legendary level can be used for that. Because of what Shin did, it made his harem grow day by day. As both moved to the next location, seeing a massive magic egg, it hatched into a griffin. Immediately, it unleashed its skill to attack them, knowing its power was immense. So Shin suggested he would act as bait. Rion seized the opportunity to attack it, but the plan seemed ineffective. Seeing this, Shin unleashed a finishing skill, thinking he had defeated it, but unexpectedly, it used a resurrection skill and immediately counterattacked them. So Shin suggested Rion find a teleportation gate, while he stayed behind to hold it off. After she left, Shin used Limit Off to increase its power, and also cut off its head. Thanks to its regeneration ability, it continued to recover, despite finishing it off a total of 30 times. Seeing its weakness, Shin immediately seized the opportunity and defeated it. By now, Rion had found the gate to exit outside, on the side, so Aini knew Shin would sleep next to the princess. So she felt jealous, and told Tiara to hurry up. At this point, Rion kept advising Shin to join the army, so both became close and slept next to each other until morning. The next morning when they woke up, Shin and Rion discovered a horde of monsters approaching to attack Valmer. So, the two of them planned to exterminate them. Thus, they teleported to Valmer, thinking that they would attack in a few days. Shin immediately proposed to notify the Adventurers Guild, along with reporting the situation to the army, to prepare all the battle plans. So, he went to inform the head of the Adventurers Guild in Valmer, initially thinking that he was a fraud, so they were still a bit wary of Shin. But, thanks to a letter from the Moon Temple, Shin got the approval of the guild master. While thinking about what to do next, Shin stopped when he saw a familiar sign. So, Shin asked Shni if she knew Nyanderland, but she didn't know either. Suddenly, Shin ran into Barrett again. It turned out he was a support character in the game, so the two of them stopped to talk. Knowing that the group of monsters would attack, Shin also told Barrett everything, thinking that with the power of a high human, Shin would immediately be able to destroy them, because currently, high humans are considered demigods in the new gate. And he asked Shin if there was anything he could help with. At this moment, Barrett also mentioned that Shadow was in Valmer, along with Holly, who were Shin's old friends. But, they are currently on a mission, so, they are not here at the moment. At this moment, Barrett handed Shin a piece of paper. It was a list of player killers, a group of people who like to kill players. But, when the first player was found, the one who wanted to find the PKs first was Shni. Barrett also said that she had not told Shin everything, thinking that Shni had a rebellious attitude. But, Shin always trusted her. So, the two of them parted ways. On the way back, Shin reunited with Tiara and Shni. The next day they arrived at the castle of the Lord of Valmer, to report the situation, and discuss the battle plan. So, Shni would train the knights. Knowing that her master would train the troops, Tiara thought that it would be hell, because Shni's training was very strict. Knowing that after defeating all the monsters, the final boss would appear. So, everyone was very worried. After discussing everything, everyone went back to prepare everything. Now, everyone had gathered, and Shni told Shin that, when they had defeated all of them, she had something she wanted to tell Shin in private. Now, the undead were approaching. Immediately, Shni used the skill Blue Judge. It was an area-wide skill that simultaneously exterminated all the monsters, but they continued to advance. Knowing that Shni couldn't use that skill again, Shin rushed forward to attack them. and Tiara also shot arrows to support. Surprisingly, the bow she used had been enhanced by Shin, but she didn't expect its power to be so great. This surprised Tiara. At this moment, Rion also rushed forward to engage them. Then a monster lunged to attack her, forcing Rion to raise a defensive barrier. Immediately, Wilhelm rushed in to support, and Rashia also came to help everyone. So, Wilhelm and Rion joined forces to defeat it. It was surprising that Wilhelm appeared here, and he explained that Millie had told him to support Shin. Now, Shin had changed his armor, and told everyone to fall back, so he could use his full power. Shin then summoned a cursed scythe, which greatly surprised everyone. So, Shin proceeded to eliminate them one by one, and he encountered the final boss. It turned out the one controlling the undead was a demon. Immediately, it used a mental attack to assault the group of soldiers, but Rashia used purification to help them. The attack had no effect on Shin, and he used limit off to quickly finish off the demon, and the attack was quickly dealt with. After everything, Shin also changed clothes to attend the party. Schnee and Tiara wore beautiful dresses, which made him feel shy, and also amazed everyone, because of their beauty. Now, Schnee met Shin to tell him everything that she had hidden from him about the surviving players, because she was afraid Shin would return. So, Schnee cried a lot, but Shin hugged Schnee, making her very happy again. So, Schnee asked, "Shin still likes Marino, right?" Knowing Shin's feelings won't change, immediately, Schnee moved forward to kiss him, because she will still fight to be by Shin's side, to always stay with him. Today's video ends here. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in the next videos. Thank you for watching. Love you always.